Help! 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 Suddenly he stopped. There was an answer, or so he thought. He turned round and listened, and soon there could be no doubt someone was singing a song. Hey, doll, Mary doll, ring-a-ding-dillo, ring-a-dong, hop along, fall all the willow, Tom Bom, jolly Tom, Tom Bombadillo. Tom Bombadillo. What the Sorry. Half hopeful and half afraid of some new danger, Frodo and Sam now both stood still. Suddenly, out of a long string of nonsense words, or so they seemed, the voice rose up loud and clear and burst into this song. Hey, come Mary doll, Derry doll, my darling. Light goes the withered wind and the feathered starling, down under hill, shining in the sunlight, waiting on the doorstep for the cold starlight. There my pretty lady is, river woman's daughter, slender as the willow wand, clearer than the water. Old Tom Bombadil, water lilies bringing, come hopping home again, can ya hear him singing? Hey, come Mary doll, Derry doll, and Mary-o, Goldberry, Mary yellow berry-o. Poor old willowed man, you tuck your roots away. Tom's in a hurry now, everything will follow day. Tom's coming home again, water lilies bringing. Hey, come Derry doll, can ya hear me singing? So Tom Bombadil is going to sound like a fucking weirdo because of my improvisational song. Here we go. Frodo and Sam stood as if enchanted. The wind puffed out. The leaves hung silently again on stiff branches. There was another burst of song, and then suddenly, hopping and dancing along the path, there appeared above the reeds an old battered hat with a tall crown and a long blue feather stuck in the band. With another hop and a bound, there came into view a man, or so it seemed. At any rate, he was too large and too heavy for a hobbit, if not quite tall enough for one of the big people, though he made noise enough for one, stumping along with great yellow boots on his thick legs, and charging through grass and rushes like a cow going down to drink. He had a blue coat and a long brown beard. His eyes were blue and bright. His face was red as a ripe apple, but creased into 100 wrinkles of laughter. In his hands he carried on a large leaf, as on a tray, a small pile of white water lilies. Help! Cried Frodo and Sam, running towards him with their hands stretched out. Ho, ho there! Steady there! Cried the old man, holding up one hand as if they had struck stiff. Now, my little fellows, where be you a-going, puffing like a billows? What's the matter here, then? Do you know who I am? I'm Tom Bombadil. Tell me, what's your trouble? Tom's in a hurry now. Don't you crush my lilies. My friends are caught in the willow tree, cried Frodo breathlessly. Master Mary's being squeezed to a crack, cried Sam. What? Shouted Tom Bombadil, leaping up in the air. Old Man Willow? Nothing worse than that, eh? That can soon be mended. I know the tune for him. Old Grey Willow Man, I'll freeze his marrow cold if he don't behave himself. I'll sing his roots off. I'll sing a wind up and blow leaf and branch away. Old Man Willow. Setting down his lilies carefully on the grass, he ran to the tree. There he saw Mary's feet sticking out. The rest had already been drawn further inside. Tom put his mouth to the crack and began singing in a low voice. They could not catch the words, thank God. But evidently Mary was aroused. His legs began to kick. Tom sprang away, and breaking off a hanging branch, smote the side of the tree of the willow with it. You let them out again, old man Willow, he said. What be you a-thinking of? You should not be waking. Eat earth, dig deep, drink water, go to sleep. Bombadil is talking. He then seized Mary's feet and drew him out of the suddenly widening crack. There was a tearing creak, and the other crack split open, and out of it Pippin sprang as if he had been kicked. Then, with a loud snap, both cracks closed fast again. A sudden shudder ran through the tree from root to tip, and complete silence fell. Thank you, the hobbits said, one after another. Tom Bombadil burst out laughing. Why, my little fellows, he said, stooping so that he peered into their faces, you shall come home with me. Tables all laden with yellow cream, honeycomb, and white bread and butter. Goldberry is waiting. Time enough for questions around the supper table. Follow after me as quick as you are able. This guy's great. I like him. Tom Bombadil, he's awesome. He's not in the movies. With that, he picked up his lilies, and then with a beckoning wave of his hand went hopping and dancing along the path eastward, still singing loudly and nonsensically. Too surprised and too relieved to talk, the hobbits followed after him as fast as they could. But that was not fast enough. Tom soon disappeared in front of them, and the noise of his singing got fainter and further away. Suddenly, his voice came floating back to them in a loud "Hallo! Hop along, my little friends, up the withy windle. Tom's going ahead for candles for to kindle. Down west sinks the sun. Soon you will be groping. When the night shadows fall, then the door will open. Out of the window panes light will twinkle yellow. Fear no alder black, heed no hoary willow. Fear neither root nor bough, Tom goes on before you. Hey now, merry doll, we'll be waiting for you. After that, the hobbits heard no more. The path was now plain before them, well tended and bordered with stone. It wound up onto the top of a grassy knoll, now gray under the pale starry night, and there, still high above them, on a further slope, they saw the twinkling lights of a house. Down again the path went, and then up again, up a long, smooth hillside of turf towards the light. Suddenly, a wide yellow beam flowed out brightly from a door that was opened. There was Tom Bombadil's house before them, up, down, under hill. Behind it, a steep shoulder of the land lay gray and bare, and beyond that the dark shapes of the Burrow Downs stalked away into the eastern night. They all hurried forward, hobbits and ponies. Already half their weariness and all their fears had fallen from them. "Hey, come, merry doll!" rolled out of the song to greet them. "Hey, come, merry doll, hop along, my hearties. Hobbits, ponies all, we are fond of parties. Now let the fun begin, and let us sing together." Then another clear voice, as young and as ancient as spring, like the song of a glad water flowing down in the night from a bright morning in the hills, came falling like silver to meet them. "Now let the song begin. Let us sing together. Of sun, stars, moon and mist, rain and cloudy weather, light on the budding leaf, dew on the feather, wind upon the open hill, bells on the heather, reeds by the shady pool, lilies on the water, old Tom Bombadil and the river daughter." And with that song, the hobbits stood upon the threshold, and a golden light was all about them. And that's the end of the chapter. Next chapter, chapter 7, in the house of Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil? What? What a unique character. If you just watch the movies, none of this would be in it. All right, we're going to get started. I hope you are all ready for the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. I'm excited for this one. The four hobbits stepped over the wide stone threshold and stood still, blinking. In a chair at the far side of the room, facing the outer door, sat a woman. "Enter, good guests," she said. And as she spoke, they knew that it was her clear voice that they had heard singing. But before they could say anything, she sprang up lightly and over the lily bulbs and ran laughing towards them. And as she ran, her gown rustled softly like the wind in the flowering borders of a river. "Come, dear folk," she said, taking Frodo by the hand. "Laugh and be merry. I'm Goldberry, daughter of the river. Let us shut out the night," she said, "for you are still afraid, perhaps, of mist and tree shadows and deep water and untamed things. Fear nothing, for tonight you're under the roof of Tom Bombadil." Damn, Tom Bombadil's so amazing. So amazing. The hobbits sat down gladly in low rushed seated chairs, while Goldberry busied herself about the table, and their eyes followed her, for the slender grace of her movement filled them with quiet delight. From somewhere behind the house came the sound of singing. Every now and again they caught among many a derry-dole and merry-dole and ring-a-ding-dillo the repeated words. Old Tom Bombadil is a merry fellow. Bright blue his jacket is, and his boots are yellow. Fair lady, said Frodo again, after a while, tell me, if my asking does not seem foolish, who is Tom Bombadil? He is, said Goldberry, staying her swift movements and smiling. Frodo looked at her questioningly. He is, as you have seen him, she said, in answer to his strange look. He is the master of the wood, water, and hill. Then all this strange land belongs to him. No, indeed, she answered, and her smile faded. That would indeed be a burden, she added, in a low voice, as if to herself. The trees and the grasses and all things growing or living in the land belong each to themselves. Tom Bombadil is the master. No one has ever caught old Tom walking in the forest, wading in the water, leaping on the hilltops under light and shadow. He has no fear. Tom Bombadil is master. The door opened, and in came Tom Bombadil. He had now no hat, and his thick brown hair was crowned with autumn leaves. He laughed, and going to Goldberry, took her hand. I decided to give him a crazy voice for some reason, because he has a blue jacket and yellow boots. I mean, come on. The guy's a goofball, right? Here's my pretty lady, he said, bowing to the hobbits. Here's my Goldberry, clothed in all silver green, with flowers in her girdle. Is the table laden? I see yellow cream and honeycomb, and white bread, and butter, milk, cheese, and green herbs and ripe berries gathered. Is that enough for us? Is supper ready? It is, said Goldberry, but the guests perhaps are not. Tom clapped his hands and cried, Tom, Tom, your guests are tired, and you had near forgotten. Come now, my merry friends, and Tom will refresh you. You shall clean grimy hands, and wash your weary faces, cast off your muddy cloaks, and comb out your tangles. Before long, washed and refreshed, the hobbits were seated at the table, 2 on each side, while at either end sat Goldberry and the master. It was a long and merry meal. At last, Tom and Goldberry rose and cleared the table swiftly. When everything was set in order, all the lights in the room were put out, except one lamp and a pair of candles at each end of the chimney shelf. Then Goldberry came and stood before them, holding a candle, and she wished them each a good night and deep sleep. Tom sat on a while beside them in silence, while each of them tried to muster the courage to ask one of the many questions he had meant to ask during supper. At last Frodo spoke. Do you hear me calling, master, or was it just chance that brought you at that moment? Tom stirred like a man shaken out of a pleasant dream. Eh? What? Said he. Did I hear you calling? Nay, I did not hear. I was busy singing. Just chance brought me then, if chance ye call it. It was no plan of mine, though I was waiting for you. We heard news of you, and learned that you were wandering. We guessed you'd come here long down to the water. All paths lead that way, down to Withywindle. Old grey Willow Man, he's a mighty singer, and it's hard for little folk to escape his cunning mazes. But Tom had an errand there, and he dared not hinder. Tom nodded, as if sleep was taking him again, but he went on in a soft singing voice. Great, so I have to do this voice soft somehow? I had an errand there, gathering water lilies, green leaves and lilies white, to please my pretty lady. The last ere the year's end, to keep them from the winter, to flower by her pretty feet, till the snows are melted. Each year at summer's end, I go to find them for her, in a wide, deep pool, deep and clear, far down the Withywindle.
There they open first in spring, and there they linger latest. By that pool long ago I found the river daughter, the fair young Goldberry, sitting in the rushes. Sweet was her singing then, and her heart was beating. He opened his eyes and looked at them with a sudden glint of blue. And that proved well for you, for now I shall no longer go down deep again against the forest water, not while the year is old, nor shall I be passing Old Man Willow's house this side of springtime, not till the merry spring, when the river daughter dances down the withy path to bathe in the water.
He fell silent again, but Frodo could not help asking one more question, the one he most desired to have answered.
Tell us, master, he said, about the Willowed Man. Where is he? I have never heard of him before.
No, don't, said Merry and Pippin together, sitting suddenly upright. Not now, not until the morning.
That is right, said the old man. Now isn't the time for resting. Some things are ill to hear when the world's in shadow. Sleep till the morning light, rest on the pillow, heed no nightly noise, fear no grey willow.
And with that, he took down the lamp and blew it out, and grasping a candle in either hand, he led them out of the room. They woke up, all four at once, in the morning light. Tom was moving about the room, whistling like a starling. When he heard them start, he clapped his hands and cried, "Hey, come, merry doll, derry doll, my hearties!" He drew back the yellow curtains, and the hobbits saw that these had covered the windows at either end of the room, one looking east and the other looking west.
"Good morning, merry friends," cried Tom, opening the eastern window wide.
A cool air flowed in. It had a rainy smell.
"Sun won't show her face much today, I'm thinking. I have begun walking wide, leaping on the hilltops, since the grey dawn began, nosing wind and weather, wet grass underfoot, wet sky above me. I awaken Goldberry singing under window, but not wakes hobbit folk in the early morning. In the night little folk wake up in the darkness, and sleep after light has come. Ring-a-ding-dillo. Wake now, my merry friends, and forget the nightly noises. Ring-a-ding-dillo-dell, derry-dell, my hearties."
That line right there is also why I gave him a goofy voice. Who says that?
Ring-a-ding-dillo-dell. If you come soon, you'll find breakfast on the table. If you come late, you'll get grass and rainwater.
Needless to say, not that Tom's threat sounded very serious, the hobbits came soon, and left the table late only when it was beginning to look rather empty.
"This is Goldberry's washing day," he said, "and her autumn cleaning. Too wet for hobbit folk. Let them rest while they are able. It's a good day for long tales, for questions and for answers, so Tom will start the talking."
He then told them many remarkable stories, sometimes half as if speaking to himself, sometimes looking at them suddenly with a bright blue eye under his deep brows. Often his voice would turn to song, and he would get out of his chair and dance about. He told them tales of bees and flowers, and the ways of trees, and the strange creatures of the forest, about evil things and good things, things friendly and things unfriendly, cruel things and kind things, and secrets hidden under brambles. And they saw that he nodded as if he was falling asleep. The hobbits sat still before him, enchanted, and it seemed as if, under the spell of his words, the wind had gone, and the clouds had dried up, and the day had been withdrawn, and the darkness had come from the east and west, and all the sky was filled with the light of white stars. Not gonna lie, it sounds a lot more peaceful than the voice I gave him would imply. But here we are. You know what I mean? Here we are. No going back now. He spoke at last out of his wonder and a sudden fear of that silence.
"Who are you, master?"
he asked.
"Eh, what?"
said Tom, sitting up, and his eyes glinting in the gloom.
"Don't you know my name yet? But that's the only answer. Tell me, who are you alone, yourself and nameless? But you are young, and I am old. Eldest, that's what I am. Mark my words, my friends. Tom was here before the river and the trees. Tom remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. He made paths before the big people and saw their little people arriving. He was here before the kings and the graves and the Barrow-wights. When the elves passed westward, Tom was here already. Before the seas were bent, he knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless, before the Dark Lord came from outside.
A shadow seemed to pass by the window, and the hobbits glanced hastily through the panes. When they turned again, Goldberry stood in the door behind, framed in light.
"The rain has ended," she said, "and now the waters are running down the hills under the stars. Let us now laugh and be glad."
"And let us have food and drink," cried Tom.
"Long tales are thirsty, and long listening's hungry work, morning, noon, and evening."
With that, he jumped out of his chair, and with a bound took a candle from the chimney shelf and lit it in the flame that Goldberry held. And then he danced about the table. Suddenly he hopped through the door and disappeared. Tom bowed to his guests.
"Supper is ready,"
said Goldberry. Now the hobbits saw that she was clothed in all silver and a white girdle, and her shoes were like fish's mail. But Tom was all in clean blue, blue as rain-washed forget-me-nots, and he had green stockings.
Now he's got green stockings? Come on, this guy's a goofball.
After they had eaten, Goldberry sang many songs for them, songs that began merrily in the hills and fell softly down into silence. Then once more she wished each of them a good night, and left them by the fireside. But Tom now seemed wide awake, and plied them with questions. He appeared already to know much about them, and all their families, and indeed to know much of all the history and doings of the Shire, down from days hardly remembered among the hobbits themselves. Indeed, so much did Tom know, and so cunning was his questioning, that Frodo found himself telling him more about Bilbo and his own hopes and fears than he had told before even to Gandalf.
"Show me the precious ring," he said suddenly in the midst of the story.
And Frodo, to his own astonishment, drew out the chain from his pocket, and unfastening the ring, handed it over at once to Tom. It seemed to grow larger as it lay for a moment in his big brown skin hand. Then suddenly he put it to his eye and laughed. For a second the hobbits had a vision, both comical and alarming, of his bright blue eye gleaming through a circle of gold. Then Tom put the ring round the end of his little finger and held it up to the candlelight. For a moment the hobbits noticed nothing strange about this. Then they gasped. There was no sign of Tom disappearing. Tom laughed again. Then he spun the ring in the air, and it vanished with a flash. Frodo gave a cry, and Tom leaned forward and handed it back to him with a smile.
Damn, Tom. I think the TikTok I watched, it was like talking about how Tom was unaffected by the ring, and he's just so chill that the ring doesn't do anything to him or something. And it's like, wow, it's true, according to the words on this page.
Frodo looked at it closely and rather suspiciously, like one who has lent a trinket to a juggler. It was the same ring, or looked the same and weighed the same, for that ring had always seemed to Frodo to weigh strangely heavy in the hand, but something prompted him to make sure. He was perhaps a trifle annoyed with Tom for seeming to make so light of what even Gandalf thought so perilously important. He waited for an opportunity. When the talk was going again, and Tom was telling an absurd story about badgers and their queer ways, then he slipped the ring on. Merry turned to him to say something, gave a start, and checked an exclamation. Frodo was delighted, in a way. It was his own ring, all right, for Merry was staring blankly at his chair, and obviously could not see him. He got up and crept away from the fireside towards the door.
"Hey there!"
cried Tom, glancing toward him
with a most seeing look in his shining eye. "Hey, come Frodo there! Where be you a-going? Old Tom Bombadil's not as blind as that yet. Take off your golden ring. Your hand's more fair without it. Come back, leave your game, and sit down beside me. We must talk a while more, and think about the morning. Tom must teach the right road, and keep your feet from wandering." Frodo laughed, trying to feel pleased, and taking off the ring, he came and sat down again. By his advice, they decided to make nearly due north from his house, over the western and lower slopes of the downs. They might hope in that way to strike the east road in a day's journey, and avoid the barrows. He told them not to be afraid, but to mind their own business. "Keep to the green grass. Don't you go a-meddling with old stone or cold whites, or prying in the houses, unless you be strong folk with hearts that never falter." He said this more than once, and he advised them to pass the barrows by on the west side if they chanced to stray near one. Then he taught them a rhyme to sing if they should, by ill luck, fall into any danger or difficulty the next day. "Ho, Tom Bombadil, Tom Bombadillo, by water, wood, and hill, by reed and willow, by fire, sun, and moon, hearken now and hear us. Come, Tom Bombadil, for our need is near us." When they had sung this all together after him, he clapped them each on the shoulder with a laugh, and taking candles led them back to the bedroom. Boom! And that's Chapter 7 completed. We learned about Tom Bombadil. Quite a curious fellow, was he not? Very interesting. Singing with terrible color combinations. He seemed so wise and unaffected by the ring. Why? Why was he not in the movie? Probably because they had to shorten it so that it would fit in less than like 3 hours or whatever the fuck that movie was. All right, we are going to move on to the next chapter here. If anybody needs a break, too bad. Chapter 8, Fog on the Barrow Downs. After breakfast, which they again ate alone, they made ready to say farewell, as nearly heavy of heart as was possible on such a morning. Tom came out of the house and waved his hat and danced upon the doorstep, bidding the hobbits to get up and be off and go with good speed. They rode off along a path that wound away from behind the house and went slanting up towards the north end of the hill brow under which it sheltered. They had just dismounted to lead their ponies up the last steep slope when suddenly Frodo stopped. "Goldberry!" he cried. "My fair lady, clad in all silver green. We have never said farewell to her, nor seen her since the evening." There on the hill brow she stood, beckoning to them. Her hair was flying loose, and as it caught the sun it shone and shimmered. They hastened up the last slope and stood breathless beside her. Goldberry spoke to them and recalled their eyes and thoughts. "Speak now, fair guests," she said, "and hold to your purpose. North with the winds in the left eye, and a blessing on your footsteps. Make haste while the sun shines." And to Frodo she said, "Farewell, elf friend. It was a merry meeting." But Frodo found no words to answer. He bowed low and mounted his pony, and followed by his friends, jogged slowly down the gentle slope behind the hill. Tom Bombadil's house and the valley and the forest were lost to view, and the air grew warmer between the green walls of hillside and hillside, and the scent of turf rose strong and sweet as they breathed. Turning back, when they reached the bottom of the green hollow, they saw a goldberry, now small and slender, like a sunlit flower against the sky. She was standing still, watching them, and her hands were stretched out towards them. As they looked, she gave a clear call, and lifting up her hand, she turned and vanished behind the hill. Dang! The haughty water nature gal Goldberry. About midday, they came to a hill whose top was wide and flattened, like a shallow saucer with a green-mounded rim. They rode across and looked northwards, and their hearts rose,
for it seemed plain that they had come further already than they had expected. Due north they faintly glimpsed a long, dark line.
"That is a line of trees," said Mary, "and that must mark the road. All along it for many leagues east of the bridge there are trees growing. Some say they were planted in the old days." "Splendid," said Frodo. "If we make as good going this afternoon as we have done this morning, we shall have left the downs before the sun sets and be jogging on in search of a camping place."
Riding over the hills and eating their fill, the warm sun and the scent of turf, lying a little too long, stretching out their legs and looking at the sky above their noses. These things are, perhaps, enough to explain what happened. However that may be, they woke suddenly and uncomfortably from a sleep they had never meant to take. The standing stone was cold, and it cast a long, pale shadow that stretched eastward over them. The hobbits sprang to their feet in alarm and ran to the western rim. They found that they were upon an island in the fog. The fog rolled up to the walls and rose above them. They felt as if a trap was closing about them, but they did not quite lose heart. They still remembered the hopeful view they had of the line of the road ahead, and they still knew in which direction it lay. They packed up as quickly as their chilled fingers would work. Soon they were leading their ponies in a single file over the rim and down the long northward slope of the hill, down into a foggy sea.
"Come, follow me,"
he called back over his shoulder, and he hurried forward. But his hope soon changed to bewilderment and alarm, and suddenly he saw, towering ominous before him and leaning slightly towards one another like the pillars of a headless door, two huge standing stones. He had passed between them almost before he was aware. His pony reared and snorted, and he fell off. When he looked back, he found that he was alone. The others had not followed him.
"Sam," he called. "Pippin, Mary, come along. Why don't you keep up?"
There was no answer. Fear shook him, and he ran back past the stones, shouting wildly,
"Sam! Sam! Mary! Pippin!"
The pony bolted into the mist and vanished. From some way off, or so it seemed, he thought he heard a cry.
"Oi! Frodo! Oi!"
He plunged off in the direction of the call and found himself going steeply uphill.
"Frodo! Oi!"
Came the thin voices out of the mist, and then a cry that sounded like, "Help! Help!
"Where are you?"
He cried out miserably. He imagined suddenly that he caught a muffled cry. Then he made towards it. To his right there loomed against the westward stars a dark black shape. A great barrow stood there.
"Where are you?"
He cried again, both angry and afraid. "Here," said a voice, deep and cold, that seemed to come out of the ground. "I am waiting for you."
"No,"
said Frodo, but he did not run away. His knees gave, and he fell on the ground. Nothing happened. There was no sound. Trembling, he looked up, in time to see a tall, dark figure, like a shadow against the stars. It leaned over him. He thought there were two eyes, very cold, though lit with a pale light that seemed to come from some remote distance. Then a grip stronger and colder than iron seized him. The icy touch froze his bones, and he remembered no more. When he came to himself again, for a moment he could recall nothing except for a sense of dread. Then suddenly he knew that he was imprisoned, caught hopelessly. He was in a barrow. A Barrow-wight had taken him, and he was probably under the dreadful spells of the Barrow-wights, about which whispered tales spoke. The Barrow-wight! The Barrow-wight! He thought he had come to the end of his adventure, and a terrible end, but the thought hardened him. He found himself stiffening, as if for a final spring. He no longer felt limp like a helpless prey. He turned, and there in the cold glow he saw lying beside him Sam, Pippin, and Mary. They were on their backs, and their faces looked deathly pale, and they were clad in white. About them lay many treasures, of gold maybe, though in that light they looked cold and unlovely. On their heads were circlets, Gold chains were about their waists, and on their fingers were many rings. Swords lay by their sides, and shields were at their feet, but across their 3 necks lay one long naked sword. Suddenly, a song began, a cold murmur rising and falling. Cold be hand and heart and bone, and cold be sleep under stone, never more to wake on stony bed, never till the sun fails and the moon is dead. In the black wind and the stars shall die, and still on Gold Hill let them lie, till dark Lord lifts his hand over Dead Sea and withered land. I've given up on the singing, apparently. He heard behind his head a creaking and scraping sound. Round the corner, a long arm was groping, walking on its fingers towards Sam, who was lying nearest, and towards the hilt of the sword that lay upon him. Suddenly, resolve hardened in him, and he seized a short sword that lay beside him, and kneeling, he stooped low over the bodies of his companions. With what strength he had, he hewed at the crawling arm near the wrist, and the hand broke off. But at the same moment, the sword splintered up to the hilt. There was a shriek, and the light vanished. In the dark, there was a snarling noise. Frodo fell forward over Merry, and Merry's face felt cold. All at once, back into his mind, from which it had disappeared with the first coming of the fog, came the memory of the house down under the hill, and of Tom singing. He remembered the rhyme that Tom had taught them. In a small, desperate voice, he began, "Ho, Tom Bombadil." And with that name, his voice seemed to grow strong. It had a full and lively sound, and the dark chamber echoed as if to drum and trumpet. "Ho, Tom Bombadil, Tom Bombadillo, by water, wind, and hill, by reed and willow, by fire, sun, and moon, hearken now and hear us. Come, Tom Bombadil, for our need is near us." There was a sudden, deep silence, which Frodo could hear his heart beating. After a long, slow moment, he heard plain, but far away, as if it was coming down through the ground, through thick walls, an answering voice, singing, "Old Tom Bombadillo is a merry fellow. Bright blue his jacket is, and his boots are yellow. None has ever caught him yet, for Tom, he is the master. His songs are stronger songs, and his feet are faster." There was a loud, rumbling sound, as of stones rolling and falling, and suddenly light streamed in, real light, the plain light of day. A low, door-like opening appeared at the end of the chamber beyond Frodo's feet, and there was Tom's head, hat, feather, and all, framed against the light of the sun, rising red behind him. Tom stooped, removed his hat, came into the dark chamber, singing, "Get out, you old wight! Vanish in the sunlight! Shrivel like cold mists, like the winds go wailing! Out into the barren lands, far beyond the mountains! Come, never here again! Leave your barrow empty! Last and forgotten be, darker than the darkness, where gates stand for ever shut, till the world is mended." Tom Bombadil, baby. At these words, there was a cry, and there was a long, trailing shriek, fading away in an unguessable distance, and after that, silence. "Come, friend Frodo," said Tom, "let us get out onto clean grass. You must help me bear them." Together, they carried out Merry, Pippin, and Sam. Tom went back in again, and there was a sound of Munch thumping and stamping. When he came out, he was bearing in his arms a great load of treasure, things of gold, silver, copper, and bronze, many beads and chains and jeweled ornaments. He climbed the green barrow and laid them all on top in the sunshine. There he stood, with his hat in his hand and the wind in his hair, and looked down upon the 3 hobbits. Raising his right hand, he said in a clear and commanding voice, "Wake now, my merry lads, wake and hear me calling. Warm now be heart and limb,
The cold stone is fallen. Dark door is standing wide. Dead hand is broken. Night under night is flown, and the gate is open.
To Frodo's great joy, the hobbits stirred, stretching their arms, rubbed their eyes, and then suddenly sprang up. They looked about in amazement, first at Frodo, and then at Tom, standing large as life on the barrow top above them, and then at themselves in their thin white rags, crowned and belted with pale gold and jingling with trinkets.
"What in the name of wonder?"
began Merry, feeling the golden circlet that slipped over one eye. Then he stopped, and a shadow came over his face and closed his eyes.
"Of course I remember," he said. "The men of Carn Dûm came on us at night, and we were worsted. Ah, the spear in my heart!"
He clutched at his breast.
"No, no," he said, opening his eyes. "What am I saying? I've been dreaming. Where did you get to, Frodo?" I thought that I was lost," said Frodo, "but I don't want to speak of it. Let us think of what we are to do now. Let us go on." "Dressed up like this, sir," said Sam. "Where are my clothes?"
He flung his circlet, belt, and rings into the grass, and looked round helplessly, as if he expected to find his cloak, jacket, and breeches, and other hobbit garments lying somewhere to hand.
"You won't find your clothes again,"
said Tom, bounding down from the mound, and laughing as he danced round them in the sunlight. One would have thought that nothing dangerous or dreadful had happened, and indeed the horror faded out of their hearts as they looked at him, and saw the merry glint in his eyes.
"What do you mean?"
asked Pippin, looking at him, half puzzled and amused.
"Why not?"
Tom shook his head, saying,
"You found yourselves again, out of the deep water. Clothes are but little loss. If you escape from drowning, be glad, my merry friends, and let the warm sunlight heat and now hard limb. Cast off these cold rags, run naked on the grass, while Tom goes a-hunting."
He sprang away down the hill, whistling and calling. Looking down after him, Frodo saw him running away southwards, along the green hollow, between their hills and the next, still whistling and crying.
"Hey now, come hoy now, whither do you wander? Up, down, near or far, here, there, or yonder. Sharp ears, wise nose, swish tail and bumpkin, white socks, my little lad, old fatty lambkin."
So he sang, running fast, tossing up his hat and catching it. The air was growing very warm again. The hobbits ran about for a while on the grass, as he told them. Then they lay basking in the sun, with the delight of those that have been wafted suddenly from bitter winter to a friendly clime, or of people that, after being long ill and bedridden, wake one day to find they are unexpectedly well, and the day is again full of promise.
This book's a trip, isn't it?
By the time that Tom returned, they were feeling strong and hungry. He reappeared, hat first, over the brow of the hill. Behind him came, in an obedient line, 6 ponies, their own 5, and one more. The last was plainly old fatty Lumpkin. He was larger, stronger, fatter, and older than their own ponies. Merry, to whom the others belonged, had not, in fact, given them any such names, but they answered to the new names that Tom Bombadil had given them for the rest of their lives. Tom called them one by one, and they climbed over the brow and stood in a line. Then Tom bowed to the hobbits.
"Here are your ponies now," he said. "They've more sense, in some ways, than you wandering hobbits have. More sense in their noses, for they sniff danger ahead, which you walk right into. And if they run to save themselves, then they run right away. You must forgive them all, for though their hearts are faithful, to face fear of Barrow-wights is not what they were made for. See, here they come, bringing all their burdens."
"Where does that other old animal, that fatty Lumpkin, come from?" asked Frodo.
"He's mine," said Tom, "my 4-legged friend, though I seldom ride him, and he wanders often far, free upon the hillsides. When your ponies stayed with me, they got to know my Lumpkin, and they smelled him in the night and quickly ran to meet him. I thought he'd look for them, and with his words of wisdom take all their fear away. But now, my jolly lumpkin, old Tom's going to ride. Hey, he's coming with you, just to set you on the road, so he needs a pony. For you cannot easily talk to hobbits that are riding, when you're on your own legs trying to trot beside them.
The hobbits were delighted to hear this, and thanked Tom many times, but he laughed and said that they were so good at losing themselves that he would not feel happy till he had seen them safe over the borders of his land.
I've got things to do, he said, my making and my singing, my talking and my walking, and my watching of the country. Tom can't be always near to open doors and willow cracks. Tom has to house his mind, and Goldberry is waiting.
It was still fairly early by the sun, something between 9 and 10, and the hobbits turned their minds to food. While they were eating, Tom went up to the mound and looked through the treasures. Most of these he made into a pile that glistered and sparkled in the grass. He bade them to lie there, free to all finders, birds, beasts, elves, or men, and all kindly creatures, for so the spell of the mound should not be broken and scattered, and no wight ever come back to it. He chose for himself, from the pile, a brooch set with blue stones, many shaded like flax flowers or the wings of blue butterflies. He looked long at it, as if stirred by some memory, shaking his head, and saying at last, Here's a pretty toy for Tom, and for his lady. Fair was she who long ago wore this on her shoulder. Goldberry shall wear it now, and we will not forget her. For each of the hobbits he chose a dagger, long, leaf-shaped, and keen, of marvelous workmanship, damask with serpent forms in red and gold. They gleamed as he drew them from their black sheaths, and brought some strange metal, light and strong, and set with many fiery stones. Whether by some virtue in these sheaths, or because of the spell that lay on the mound, the blades seemed untouched by time, unrusted, sharp, glittering in the sun. Old knives are long enough as swords for hobbit people, he said. Sharp blades are good to have if shire folk go walking, east, south, or far away into dark and danger. Then he told them that these blades were forged many long years ago by men of Westerness. They were foes of the Dark Lord, but they were overcome by the evil king of Carndum in the land of Angmar. Few now remember them, Tom murmured, yet still some go wandering, son of forgotten kings, walking in loneliness, guarding from evil things that folk are heedless. The hobbits did not understand his words, but as he spoke, they had a vision as if it were a great expanse of years behind them, like a vast shadowy plain over which there strode shapes of men, tall and grim with bright swords, and last came one with a star on his brow. Their new weapons they hung on their leather belts under their jackets, feeling very awkward and wondering if they would be of any use. Fighting had not before occurred to any of them as one of their adventures in which their flight would land them. As they last set off, they led their ponies down the hill, and then mounting, they trotted quickly along the valley. Though Frodo looked about him on every side, he saw no sign of the great stone standing like a gate. It was a merry journey, with Tom Bombadil trotting gaily beside them, or before them, on Fatty Lumpkin, who could move much faster than his girth promised, Tom saying most of the time. But it was chiefly nonsense, or else perhaps a strange language unknown to the hobbits, an ancient language whose words were mainly those of wonder and delight. They went forward steadily, but they soon saw the road was further away than they had imagined. Even without a fog, their sleep at midday would have prevented them from reaching it until after nightfall on the day before. They rode down the bank and looked up and down. There was nothing to be seen. Well, here we are again at last, said Frodo. I suppose we haven't lost more than 2 days by my shortcut through the forest, but perhaps the delay will prove useful, or it may have put them off our trail. The shadow of the fear of the Black Riders
came suddenly over them again. "Do you think," asked Pippin hesitatingly, "do you think we may be pursued tonight?" "No, I hope not tonight," answered Tom Bombadil, "nor perhaps the next day. But do not trust my guess, for I cannot tell for certain. Out east my knowledge fails. Tom is not master of riders from the Black Land far beyond his country." All the same, the hobbits wished he was coming with them. They felt that he would know how to deal with the Black Riders, if anyone did. A deep loneliness and a sense of loss was on them. They stood silent, reluctant to make the final parting, and only slowly became aware that Tom was wishing them farewell and telling them to have a good heart and to ride on till dark without halting. "Tom will give you good advice till this day is over. After that, your own luck must go with you and guide you. 4 miles along the road you'll come upon a village, Bree under Bree Hill, with doors looking westward. There you'll find an old inn that is called the Prancing Pony. Barliman Butterbur is the worthy keeper. There you can stay the night, and afterwards the morning will speed you upon your way. Be bold but wary. Keep your merry hearts, and ride to meet your fortune. No tiredness here, not a single sleepiness. I'm like the hobbits in this book that just fall asleep as they walk all the time." They begged him to come at least as far as the inn and drink once more with them, but he laughed and refused, saying, "Tom's country ends here. He will not pass the borders. Tom has his house to mind, and gold berries waiting." Then he turned, tossed up his hat, leaped on Lumpkin's back, and rode up over the bank and away singing into the dusk. The hobbits climbed up and watched him until he was out of sight. "I'm so sorry to take leave of Master Bombadil," said Sam. "He's a caution, and no mistake." Sorry, I'm kind of trying to get into Sam mode. I've done Sam so many different ways. I was editing. I'm like, man, I can't settle on a damn voice for Sam. It's like he's got marbles in his mouth. "I'm so sorry to take leave of Master Bombadil," said Sam. "He's a caution, and no mistake. I reckon we may go a good deal further and see naught better nor queer. But I won't deny I'll be glad to see this prancy pony he speaks of. I hope it'll be like the Green Dragon away back home. What sort of folk are they in Bree?" "There are hobbits in Bree," said Mary, "as well as big folk. I dare say it will be homelike enough. The pony's a good inn by all accounts. My people ride out there now and again." "It may be all we could wish," said Frodo, "but it is outside the Shire all the same. Don't make yourselves too much at home. Please remember, all of you, that the name of Baggins must not be mentioned. I am Mr. Underhill, if any name must be given." They now mounted their ponies and rode off silently into the evening. Before them rose Bree Hill, barring the way, a dark mass against misty stars, and under its western flank nestled a large village. Towards it they now hurried, desiring only to find a fire and a door between them and the night. Finally, we're back in film territory. Oh, that's the end of the chapter. Oh, yeah, okay. That is the end of the chapter. Look at that. And now we're at the Prancing Pony, where they will meet Aragorn if the movie's anything to be said about it. Right? I think that's what happens. We did lots of reading today. Some interesting voices. Tom Bombadil, quite a character. We got the whole Tom Bombadil experience today. It was very interesting, I must say. It was very spooky, but in a good way, I guess. I don't know. He's a good guy. He's a super chill guy, and he's just like helping. We're gonna go ahead and end the stream. Thank you all for watching. Oh, I just fucked up my setup. Oh, that's. Thank you for watching. Old Tom Bombadil, Bombadillo, or whatever he says. Yeah. Catch y'all later. Farewell. Farewell. Fare thee well.